Does that mean we're supposed to kick this off now?
Doesn't mean anything, but I think at this point you all can get started if you'd like.
All right.
So I will call to order this regular meeting of the Planning Commission on Tuesday, January 25th. And it is 5:33. So we start with the roll call?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Emilson,
Here.
Franz,
Here.
Blisk,
Here.
Meyer,
Here.
Nelson, not here, Mayor Clark,
Here.
and Chairperson Montague.
I am also here.
All right.
So shall we launch right into public hearings, or does someone have something before that? Ready to go?
Yep.
So I would like to introduce an application for a temporary use permit, location block 22, lots 16 through 20, address TBD Clinton Street, zone historical residential, applicant Stryker and Company, Inc., owner Ridgway Runners. And just for perspective, this is the staging area for Space to Create. I will turn it over to TJ, who we get to see this week.
I feel like it's been a long time. I hope you all had great holidays and 2022 is going well. So, but thank you very much, Chair. So what we have, as you mentioned, is a temporary use permit. It's in essence an extension, but the code doesn't allow for an extension, so it's a new permit. This is similar to the one that Stryker requested last April, and so that original TUP was approved on April 27th of 2021. As part of that approval, the Planning Commission did place 4 conditions on that approval, and those conditions were, just to remind you, are: 1, equipment shall not be idled between the hours of 7 p.m., 7 a.m., and idling of any kind should be minimized. Number 2, the applicant shall provide adequate traffic control and monitoring when equipment is moved from the construction staging site to the project site. 3, temporary use permit shall expire January 31st, 2022. And 4, contractor will meet with the community to address concerns on a bi-weekly basis. So that's background. Obviously, the 31st being 6 days from now. That's why we're here. They're asking for an extension of that for another 9 months of the temporary use. So again, the Ridgway Municipal Code provisions allow for construction offices that are incidental to construction on site for up to 9 months, and that's section 7318C1. So that's what we're kind of here under. The location of the temporary use permit. The construction site, staging site is proposed to be on the same site. It's at the southwest corner of Laura and Clinton Streets. As mentioned, the property is zoned HR, Historic Residential District, and it's the staging site for the art space project that is being constructed catty corner on that intersection at the northwest corner of Clinton Street and Laura Street. As was true with the initial TUP, the applicant is Stryker, and they're the ones that are the general contractor on the art space project. The applicant has installed and proposes to continue to use a construction trailer for, excuse me, for Connex material storage units, lumber storage, and construction parking on this in the staging area. There is a site plan that's included in the packet that depicts all of that. The site is entirely fenced and will continue to be fenced. And there will be access off of Clinton Street. To date, I'm not aware, and Preston is not aware of any reported issues or concerns regarding the use. That being said, as mentioned, this is also, there are some safety issues potential concerns and some nuisances, which kind of go along with this type of use. So what we're looking to do is that the applicant will need to continue to ensure that speeds are slow between the staging area and the project site. Be sure that there's always flaggers and monitoring of that traffic going back and forth, and make sure that there's adequate traffic control between the areas. So again, the municipal code does provide for up to 9 months. By issuing a permit here in January, the permit would expire in October 31st of 2022. Construction activities are anticipated to be completed by midsummer, but the applicant did ask for the full 9 months, just in case. So with that, based on the review of the application against the applicable standards, staff recommends the temporary use permit be approved with the following conditions. 1, equipment shall not be idle between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. 2, the applicant shall provide adequate traffic control or monitoring when equipment is moved from the construction staging site to the project site. 3, the temporary use permit shall expire on October 31st, 2022. And 4, contractor will meet with the community to address concerns on a bi-weekly basis. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant is here. Yep, Mark is here, and probably will be able to give a presentation and answer any questions you have also. Thanks.
Do any commissioners have questions?
Well, I'm curious because I believe at the town council meeting, this also came up around the road closure. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And so, and that was ultimately,
Oh, you're frozen.
Uh-oh.
All we heard is that was ultimately.
oh, okay. Let's see if I can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just remembering that the last town council meeting, I believe it was for the road closure, was early
Correct.
July. Is that correct?
Correct.
That they were hoping to be done.
Correct.
So is the thought to go the 9 months so they don't have to come back and ask for more time?
Looks like TJ's nodding.
Yes, I believe that that's the reason.
That was the,
But I believe that Mark would probably be better to answer that question in his presentation. Mark
Okay.
is with Stryker.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can speak to that if that's okay at this point.
sure.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So yes, we are two things that you brought up there. One, our town council meeting, I think 2 weeks ago, we did ask for the road closure with the intention of being near complete in midsummer. So with that, we did agree as a council, gave us permission to keep the road closed through June 15th, I think is the date. And that's what we were asking for construction progress. Now our construction deadline for the completion of this job is actually August 29th. That is when we are scheduled or contractually required to be complete for the town. While we plan on being done, our lease will expire midsummer for that lot. We applied for the whole period without the intent of extending our lease with the landowner. But that way, if we do need to, for any reason, we have the approval for the temporary use of that lot. So the code allows for 9 months. That's why we asked for the 9 months. As far as our intentions, we plan on being off of that lot, just like with the road closure by midsummer at the latest with that lot. Does that answer your questions on that?
It does. Thank you.
So to that end, I don't have a formal presentation. Talking with Preston about this previously, it's the same as what it was. We're using it for construction storage, some parking, our trailer and things of that nature. I think that while we've been granted access for temporary use of that site, it's been helpful for us. I know construction just inherently is a an impact to the community, but it helps us limit that impact a little bit. So that's why we're asking to continue that temporary approval to continue that use for that site. Like I said a minute ago, for the 9 months, which is what your code allows, but we should be off that site by midsummer.
Thank you. Being a public hearing, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this application? I will now close public comment. I would just like to comment that I'm impressed that there have been no complaints. It's a big project. There's a lot going on over there. And I think that speaks to the construction company being pretty conscientious and communicating with neighbors. And that's always the intention in the beginning, but that doesn't always happen. So thank you for making everyone's life easier.
Well, we try. So the only other thing I think I'd like to bring up with this, and I think Preston is on here as well. I'm sorry I joined a few minutes late. The one condition I'd like to see if we can change is it was originally required for bi-monthly meetings or bi-weekly meetings. For lack of attendance from community, we've gone to monthly meetings. And I'd like to see if we can keep that as a monthly requirement instead of bi-weekly.
I don't see a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that
Yeah.
either.
It's usually just Preston and I talking for 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's good. That works. Works for me.
Any more discussion? Can I have a motion?
So I move to approve the temporary use permit for Stryker using lots 16 through 20 of block 22 through October 31st, 2022.
With the
The
staff
condition-
recommendations and a change on the bi-weekly to monthly?
Yes, thank you.
I'll
Is that-
second that.
Thank you. Does that motion suffice, TJ?
Yes, ma'am.
And Thomas seconded it. So I guess we need a roll call vote.
Karen?
He's coming. Sorry, say again, Karen. We're having a hard time hearing you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Nope.
Not anymore.
How about
I
I'll
don't know
get,
what happened to my phone.
no, that's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna do a vote, roll call vote. Commissioner Immelson,
Aye.
Franz,
Aye.
Lisk,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
uh, Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Chairperson Montague.
Aye.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to introduce the second application tonight. A variance for fence setback, location River Park Ridgway Business Park Filing 1, replat of blocks 2, 8, and Alley A, Lot 1. Address to be decided, North Cora Street, Zone Light Industrial 1, I-1. Applicant Charlie Scoville, owners Harvey's Holdings LLC. And I will turn that over to TJ.
Excellent, thank you, Chair. And just some procedural elements, because it might be Charlie's first meeting. So we'll give the presentation, staff report, and then there'll be discussion, and then with questions for me, and then they'll open up for your presentation. And then they'll open it up for public comment. So thank you, Chair. As you mentioned, this is a variance for setback. A setback variance to install a fence within a required setback on 2 property lines. The site is currently vacant with no significant topographic or natural features. At this point, the applicant has not disclosed or defined what the intended use for the property is outside of the fence, the desire to install the fence. In order to utilize the entire parcel, the applicant seeks a variance to eliminate 2 required setbacks for a fence. Section 7312D of the Ridgway Municipal Code states that fencing is not allowed in the front or side setbacks along any proposed or any street, sorry. The required setbacks for Railroad to the north and Chorus Streets to the east are 8 feet and 15 feet respectively. The fence is proposed to be placed at the property line, reducing the setback up to of the fence to 0 feet. So therefore, the applicant is requesting 2 variances, and I want to be clear. If you can move them all in one motion if you'd like, but there are 2 requests, and I'd like it just to be clear through that. One, the first request is a variance to allow a reduced setback, a reduced side yard setback abutting Railroad Street from the required 8 feet to 0 feet. And the second is a variance to allow a reduced front yard setback abutting Chorus Street from the required 15 feet to 0 feet. Okay, I know it's a little nuanced and everything, but hopefully you're following along at home. So just a couple of the key review findings that I wanted to point out. There's a little bit more in the staff report, but I wanted to really point these 2 items out. First are the easements. The parcel has existing utility and drainage easements along both the property lines adjacent to the streets. Of critical importance to the town is the 20-foot drainage easement along Railroad Street. While it is possible to construct a fence in an easement, it cannot disturb the flow of drainage within that easement. The swale in that easement is carrying stormwater runoff along Railroad, so it's pretty critical that it does not impede the flow of that water. Secondly, traffic and roadways. The fence is proposed to be installed at the corner of Railroad and Cora. The location appears to be located in a manner that would obstruct the view of vehicles turning onto Railroad from Cora. Section 6-41B states, no fence shall be constructed or maintained on corner lots in a place or at a height which unreasonably creates a traffic hazard by obstructing vision from vehicles on abutting streets. This standard does not appear to be met with the proposed fence location. In order to grant a variance, the Planning Commission must first determine that the criteria set forth in section 7.3.21A of the Ridgway Municipal Code are met. Those criteria are: 1, there are practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the zoning ordinance. And 2, the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, the public health, safety, and welfare secured, and substantial justice done by granting the variance. So based on the staff review, our review of the application materials against the applicable code standards, we are recommending, staff recommends the Planning Commission denied both variance requests, finding that the criteria 1 and 2 have not been met or satisfactorily met. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And as I mentioned, the applicant is here as well to present the case.
I have a question. The utility easements, those are just drainage?
Not necessarily. So they're 2 separate types of easements. So the utility easements are where you can put in the utility of the day, fiber, outside of the road, electrical. You can put in a lot of the dry utilities in there. And it's usually that 8 to 10 feet within every property line.
Do we know if there's any utilities in there yet?
I am unaware.
No, there are not. I had each utility
one.
company come over, and there are not utilities there.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions?
Yeah, excuse me, I do. I'm looking at the map. I'm struggling to figure out exactly what lot we're talking about so I can see where the easement is.
See the picture on page, there's no, yeah, page 5 of 7. There's a picture. It's the corner.
Oh,
of
I'm
the-
sorry. I didn't scroll down. I apologize. Okay, that's fine. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions at the moment?
If I might just provide just one little clarification, that there are 2 graphics in the staff report, one of kind of a yellow fence superimposed on the Google Earth Street View, as well as another one that is of the property with different colored lines. I just want to be clear that those two graphics were actually created by us in our development of the staff report. So those are not necessary. Those were more for graphical purposes for your knowledge, not necessarily what's being proposed by the applicant.
Thank you. So I'll open it up to the applicant. Matt?
Yeah, go on. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just saying if you have anything you want to add.
I guess I'm going for this variance because I wanted to keep our local concrete company away from residential, our residential house, that we can have things all the way up, our fence line all the way up to the property line. And instead of having any, I don't know, any commercial things at our residential, we can bring it down to the industrial where we bought. But with this variance, it's taking 10% of what we bought away from us, where we could use that as extra storage as opposed to at our residence, where we can kind of put anything in. I mean, maybe not, but our fence line can go right up to it. And we've bought to where I feel like the town of Ridgway wants to direct the industrial, I don't know, the industrial park. They want to direct construction and whatnot that way instead of in the residential area.
Well, I don't know if it's appropriate to have back and forth at this point. Is there anything else you want to present? Or is that the crux of your take on this?
So quick question, John. This is Josie. So I know that the second part of it was talking about how there wasn't a what's it called done. I'm all blurry. There wasn't a assessment a lot done about the safety of it, but Charlie walked that property line with Mike Gill, who's the building inspector for the community. And Mike Gill definitely said, yeah, this is not an issue. And so I guess our question too is, if this is a request by the town or the planning commission, what would we do beyond like walking that property line with the building inspector, Mike Gill?
Well, I don't know. It sounds like maybe Mike hadn't reminded himself of the criteria of the zone and the requirement that the fence can't be at the property line on the side yard and the front yard setback. I mean, in response to Charlie's comments, I'd say, one, in the residential zones in town, you can't store construction materials in your yard in residential in town.
Have you driven around Ridgway, John?
Believe me, I know that people do that, but it's not allowed technically. It's an enforcement issue, and people do it.
Right. And we're trying to do this the right way by applying for the variance and not just doing what we want to do like most of the town does. I guess that was our point.
I understand. The problem is that there's criteria in the zoning code about I-1 that says that you can't, I mean, it should have been apparent when you bought that parcel that you weren't allowed to build your fence to the property line. And I think there are a couple of factors I would throw out. One is that the staff report mentions this, the view lines are definitely messed up. It creates a traffic issue by having the 8-foot fence go all the way to the property line at the corner of Cora and Railroad. There have been numerous requests for fence height variances in all over town, residential, commercial, that we've denied because of view triangle issues. And then the other thing I'd say is that, you know, if you look at the rest of the industrial park, everybody else has complied with the criteria of the zone that says there's no fencing outside of the setbacks. And it makes for a nice aesthetic visual appeal of the neighborhood. Yes, it's an industrial zone, but you know, there's sidewalks and I mean, it's just matching everything else that's going on. I certainly.
There's also, I feel like there's also buildings there that don't have fences and they have things up against the sidewalks. And I felt like by getting the variance for the fence, maybe the things are you know, our stuff wouldn't be up against there and it'd be safer for the community walking by it.
And the sidewalk would continue either way, even with the variance, John. So that wouldn't go away.
I understand.
And even if, you know, like also, I guess there's like the, sorry, TJ had said, these are two separate variance requests. And so even if the planning commission feels that you want the visual standard of the 15-foot setback along Cora, you know, then what about the side, like the whole long length of it? I mean, that's a lot of square feet on that lot. It's just, it goes away if you have that 8-foot setback along the Railroad or whatever that, I can't remember what the street is, the long one going into River Park.
It's Railroad. I mean, you got to understand that the way the code's written and the way the variance section particularly is written is it talks about, you know, undue hardship and stuff. And I think the staff report's absolutely correct in that you haven't shown undue hardship to move the fence into the setback. But I don't want to dominate this discussion. Other planning commissioners want to.
For me, John, it's a traffic safety issue. I mean, that's a very busy corner. And if the site, if a fence with 0 setback would be placed there, you would not be able, going either direction, you would be blind until essentially you arrive at the the intersection. So yeah, I mean, that alone for me is enough to deny the request.
I also see a safety concern with the fence being up against the sidewalk. There's no room for error walking that sidewalk. That's a very well-traveled sidewalk by people and pets and children, and you're between a sidewalk and a fence. And so if there's ever an error on the street with traffic, there's nowhere to go. So it concerns me to put that fence that tight up against a sidewalk. I think that would be unsafe as well as unsightly. I also question the utility easement. So if the power company or the internet company decided they wanted to put a line in there, then they can basically come and dig that up.
So even if this variance is denied, Michelle, we're still putting a fence in where the setback is, which is still, the utility easement is still within that even.
I understand that, but it still leaves them 8 feet to work within, and I would assume that they would work within that 8 feet if at all possible.
Right.
And not disturb your fence or your yard. I just think it's a lot. I think it's a lot. It's a kind of we're presented with an all or nothing application here. Maybe if we had more of an idea of what was planned for this lot and a partial, I can only speak for myself, and I can ask the commission, would we consider a partial variance? I don't think there's going to be support for a total variance on both sides. without digging a hole. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I guess this is the first time we've ever applied for variance, done anything with the town, clearly. And so it didn't even occur to us that we should separate or say, hey, can we do option A, B, or C? And so we're open to like discussion with the council or with the commission rather, if there's partial variances or whatever.
My other thought is that in the code, I thought that it said that the storage and I don't know how much this is enforced, and that's not necessarily my concern, but how much storage can be placed on in light industrial lot without a structure of any sort.
I plan on putting a structure on. I guess that is not part of what we're talking about, but yeah, I plan on putting a structure on. I was just trying to get as much space as possible. And I guess without using the 15 feet for parking in front and keeping the parking off of Cora Street there because it's a disaster, and then having people coming through the alley instead and using it for parking on the inside as opposed to the outside.
TJ, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to point out, I think, Chair, what you were referring to. Outdoor storage exceeding 200% of the principal building footprint is allowed, but in no case can it exceed 900% of the principal structure's building footprint. So without going into it, and again, I hate planning on the dais, but I would read that to say that the code does not allow outdoor storage without a principal building. And so I would think that even behind a fence, storage would not be allowed. It would be in violation of the code until a structure was built. So that whole property would have to be kind of go through the building permit process. At that point, we would understand a lot better about what's going on in the process and be able to work with the applicants on the best way to meet their needs holistically rather than piecemeal, I guess I would say.
Okay.
I'm curious, Charlie, were you not aware of how the code's written and the fence requirement when you bought the property?
No, I was not.
Mm.
I actually thought that it was to the property line.
Mm.
I thought that it was the same as residential.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. Looks like Jack Petroselli has his hand up, Michelle.
Okay, great. Thank you. I can't see that. Jack?
Wait, need to open the public comment.
Yeah, please open the public
Sorry.
hearing first.
Sorry, I would like to open the public hearing to public comment and call on Jack.
Hi, see if I can get this going.
We can hear you.
Okay. See if I can get, so I would like to speak up here. I'm not in favor of the fence as submitted, but I am in favor of the fence. I think storing equipment here without a fence would be less desirable than storing equipment here with a fence. So I would encourage some type of negotiation to take place. Maybe the biggest concern is the long leg of this fence along railroad. And maybe that instead of an 8-foot setback there, the commission could consider a 4-foot setback if there was landscaping between the fence and the sidewalk. And I'd request that landscape be irrigated so that it would live. But I think a nice landscaped setback of 4 feet along the River Park Drive frontage there would be desirable as opposed to a bunch of bobcats and trailers and construction equipment there with no fence. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
I'd be open for that.
Let's see if anybody else wants public
Do
comment.
we have any other public comment? All right, then I will close public comment. Back to the commissioners.
There was that letter that had been.
Oh.
submitted.
Oh, yeah.
Should we have Karen read that? I believe we should read that into the record.
That sounds right.
I'm sure Preston or Karen can do that once they unmute. We'll give them a minute.
Sorry, yeah, I've got the phone going here. me find it. I've got it. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is the letter from resident Jennifer Cram. Everybody's hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Planning Commission members, I am writing concerning the fence variance application, parentheses, item 2 in parentheses, or close, on the January 25th Planning Commission agenda. I believe that the variance should be denied because Code Section 7-3-12, parentheses, I-1 light industrial zoning, close parentheses, Section D-7 says, fencing, parking, and storage is not allowed in the front or side setbacks along any street, and every other business on the street already complies with the fence setback. By my count, there are 14 different structures / businesses on North Cora between Auto Street and Railroad Street, and they all have building and fence front setbacks that comply with the code. I regularly walk down the sidewalks on both sides of that street. The setbacks ensure that it is an open and pleasant walk. If you allow the variance in this application, wouldn't you have allowed the other 14 businesses on that street to build fences with 0 setbacks? Thanks, Jennifer Cram.
Thanks, Karen.
Mhm.
Is there any other public comment? All right, I'm closing public comment. I guess this is a question for TJ, which is, can we, if there is support, I don't think there's support for the application as it stands. Can we offer something different? Or can we, how does that work?
Yeah, you can. It would have to be less intense than the request. So in this case, any setback would be more than requested. But yes, you certainly have the prerogative to be able to do that if you'd like.
And do I have any comments from the commission what you guys are thinking on this? Am I correct that we don't have support for the application as presented?
I think so.
Right, yeah, correct,
Yeah.
yeah, correct. And I'm a bit concerned with just having a fence with no idea of where a building is in relation to that fence. And it seems more appropriate to deal with the fence variance as part of a building application. John, is that something that's more what we see, or am I?
I think historically, you're right, probably we're more likely to see some sort of development on a lot before we see a request for a fence, but I don't think there's anything in the code that requires that. And I guess for my part, I'm uncomfortable considering some sort of compromise when excuse me when the staff report clearly and I think accurately states that the variance criteria have not been met. So to allow and to create a condition that allows any sort of variance shouldn't be possible, because the undue hardship and unnecessary however they word it isn't there. And I think a large part of it, to Charlie's credit, he just didn't know that this condition existed in the zone, and I can understand why he thought that he could build the same fence up to the property line that he could build in residential. I think there's enough difference in, mostly it's that residential lots are so much smaller than most industrial lots that allowing a fence to the property line is normal, and plus the height restrictions on residential fences are more restrictive and make it more. I mean, you tend to see 4-foot picket fences up to the property line in residential. You don't see 6. You couldn't see anything more than 6 foot, and you rarely do see even 6 foot. So the comparison is apples and oranges. It's not really the same. But my point basically is that I don't see how we can suggest a compromise when the variance criteria simply haven't been met. And I empathize with Charlie's and Josie's situation here, based on not being aware of the requirements for fencing in that zone. And I think I heard Charlie say that if the variance is denied, he's probably going to put the fence up where it's supposed to go anyway. So it's not like there's not going to be a fence. But and if there isn't, there's other criteria in the zone that make sure that it has to look that it can't be just stuff everywhere. But it's a tough one. I definitely feel like, I can empathize with the Scovilles on this totally, but the code doesn't give us much leeway.
Yeah.
Well, my concern isn't empathizing with them. It's more about kind of what Jack mentioned about, it would be good to have a fence there. And that being the end lot, I don't know, I guess I'm kind of seeing it as like when someone comes in with a sketch plan. I mean, we're probably not going to reduce the easement on the front. But I don't know.
The setback.
The setback on the front, but can we go so far as to say possibly when he presents the building and his plan for the lot, we would look at the setback on Railroad, or that just depends on the application?
If I may, Chair.
TJ.
I would be cautious to vary too far from the actual request in front of you, because you're looking at it as a variance. The commission's scope with a variance is much tighter than it is in a normal development application.
Okay.
So you really have to look at what's being presented to you this evening and the criteria applicable to it. The applicant, of course, would have an opportunity to make changes to the request and re-request to resubmit at a future date if there's an unsuccessful decision tonight. But I would caution the planning commission to sway too far from the actual request this evening.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you. I was just trying to
find some wiggle
make
room.
it that we're interested in working with them if we can, but not with the application as presented, was where I was going with that. But thank you for clarifying what we're allowed to do.
I think it's important to understand and to realize that the variance procedure is very specific and unique to, the variance request has to be dealt with very tightly and specifically. And it's all about those rather vague, but still specific criteria. One, that there are practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the zoning ordinance. And 2, the spirit of the ordinance will be observed, the public health, safety, and welfare secured, and substantial justice done by granting the variance. I always love that wording, but those 2 things have to be met for a variance to be approved. And I think the staff report's accurate in saying they haven't. And I think part of it is that Charlie and Josie didn't really understand that and didn't know about the fence requirements in that zone. And it's unfortunate, but I think our hands are kind of tied here. It's just not, those criteria haven't been met.
I would agree.
Does anyone want to add anything on the commission, our staff?
Russ, you're going to say something?
No, I mean, I think the understanding is that the way the variance is written, we can approve this, and the applicants are more than willing to come back with another proposal, and we can look at that again. But as it is, we're in between a rock and a hard place on approving this variance, and I don't believe we'll be able to. So,
Thank you for making that very clear. I guess I need a motion. Wait, unless there's any further discussion. All right, motion.
so I move to deny the two variances, one for the reduction of side yard on Railroad Street and the other for the reduction of setback in the front yard on Chorus Street for Harvey's Holding.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Can I get a, John seconded it. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
All right. Commissioner Ilmeson,
Aye.
Franz? I think I saw you say aye. Commissioner Lisk,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Chairperson Montague.
Aye.
Jennifer, did you say aye? You certainly looked like you had your arm over your microphone there.
Oh, yes, aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Scoville's, it's a tough
Thanks.
one.
Thank you.
Thank you for the direction on that, TJ. I appreciate it. I am
That's why I'm
scrolling
here.
Right.
through
What
my
is it?
agenda. 1 minute, please. Here we go. Let's see. So now I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 30th, 21.
So moved.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Russ, do we need to do a roll call vote on that?
Yes.
So be it.
Okay. Commissioner Ilmeson,
Aye.
Franz,
Aye.
Lisk,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Chairperson Montague.
Aye.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything they want to share before we end this brief meeting?
I still have sort of a bad cold.
I'm sorry. John.
Yeah.
I don't
Does
share
anybody
that.
else have anything?
We don't want you to, we don't want you to share that, John.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
definitely don't want me to share this.
That's why we're zooming. Yes.
I had a
Yeah.
question about the virtual meeting. I had asked Preston like where that decision comes from, and he said he shared with me that that was kind of county health and the route that the council went. And I didn't feel like I was going to come to the planning commission and say, let's all vote to have the meeting in person, but just wanted to share that I did have that question, and I'm assuming that better safe than sorry, and also better Zoom than, sitting with a mask on through the meeting. So if anyone wants to comment on that, you're welcome to.
Yeah,
Or
I
I
mean,
will assume that my assumptions are correct.
I would say they are. And it's, it's more than 2 years now we've been doing this, and it's extremely frustrating. There's pluses to Zoom, and there's negatives to meeting in person, especially with a mask on. I hate that, but do it if we have to. There, just so everybody knows, there's a workshop scheduled for Thursday night with the county and the city of Ridgway and the town of Ridgway electeds getting together to talk about whether to maybe consider a countywide mask mandate again. So tune into that if you're willing and want to have some comment on that. But yeah, it's been like the last council meeting was all virtual. So we just felt like with the burst in Omicron exposure, I mean, the counties had more positive cases in the last month than they've had in the entire previous 2 years, pretty much.
Wow.
And certainly, case numbers per day that we've never seen in the whole 2 years. So, the reason I still have this lingering cold is because I got COVID 2 weeks ago. My wife, about 10 days ago, my wife got it a week before that from school. And so it's definitely, I'm sure we're all hearing of people that we know that are getting COVID, or some friend of a friend or something. It's there's a cough to prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Jared.
Cough, sneeze, and I saw it on the internet. It's like, you don't say bless you anymore. You're like, oh my God.
Yeah. So, it's tough decisions, but I think we did the right thing going virtual. I hope everybody agrees.
Oh, yeah.
Until further notice.
Yeah.
Probably.
I saw that the town council has a work session coming up and the planning commission was not asked to attend that. And I'm guessing because that's not something we weigh in on. It's Lena Street improvements.
Oh, correct. Yep. Although, it's a process that's not been going through the planning commission because it's part of an existing development that's already been approved. Certainly the point of notifying the residents that the workshop's happening is to let you know that it's happening, so you can join the meeting if you want. You're certainly more than welcome. All planning commissioners are welcome to join the meeting and make comments. But yeah, no, that one is not, it's sort of beyond the scope of P&Z at this point.
Well, and it seemed like that was the same case with Amelia, that streetscape's not planning commission.
Pretty much. I think you could argue the other way and say that it is, but I think we try to take it on a case by case. Some of the Amelia Street discussion has been before planning commission in years past, but I think again, once it's to a certain point where the council is decided to, spend money to design potential improvements and move forward and budget for things, that's at that point it's beyond P&Z input. But again, not beyond any of us showing up and making comments as citizens.
Public.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it was happening. I'm not certainly offended that we were invited, but thank you for explaining how that works. I don't think I have anything else. Preston?
No, if I can go back on the mask piece and the virtual meeting, the town no longer has a emergency declaration in place, but we do have a full-blown electronic participation policy that affords us the ability to do just this. So what I was telling Michelle the other day is there's not really a formal mechanism that for us to kind of gauge whether or not we go to virtual meetings. I guess it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, John, it just seemed like the prudent thing to do. It's y'all's prerogative to discuss this, of course, a great discussion. And if the majority or all of you wanted to go back to in-person, wearing masks, then again, that's certainly y'all's right. So I just wanted to be clear that we don't really have that mechanism to say, okay, this number of cases, or if this happens, we go to virtual. If this happens, we can go back to meeting in person. So I hope that makes sense. We're all just trying to do what's in the best interest of all of us, health and safety wise. So there's that. And then just on the workshop regarding Lena Street improvements, I'll echo everything John said. It really falls out of the purview of the planning commission at this point, given that it's a capital project, it's been budgeted. We're purely getting an update from our engineering consultants on the design, and then wanting some public comments, specifically comments and input from the neighborhood residents, which we've already made strides to get, but certainly want more if there is more. So again, echo everything John said, and you all are more than welcome to attend and learn about the design and where it's headed.
And is that between Charles and Otto?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Yep. And I did want to, in the interest of updating planning commission about actions that council takes that that do affect planning commission. We had an extension request to meet the conditions of approval for the preserve PUD preliminary plat. The preserve is the partially completed subdivision east of the soccer fields and the tennis courts and along 23 there, in between the river and 23 as it's heading south out of town. They got a preliminary plat approval in 2016, was it, Preston? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the details.
Yeah, 2018 was the most recent
2018.
approval. Yep.
And actually, I think in 2020, they were given an extension and they were asking for another 2-year extension. Correct me if I'm wrong, Preston, did we do a 1-year extension? Is that what we compromised on, Russ? I'm trying to remember the details. I apologize, Michelle. I meant to have a more formal presentation of what we did. It's basically just they're still working on a number of things around getting going with that. One of which is that they bought the sort of abandoned grow facility across the river, the greenhouses across the river from this property, and they are in the process of cleaning up that property so it's not such an eyesore from the west side of the river. And that was one of their reasonings. And
COVID delays was another big piece of it as well.
right.
Now, if I'm remembering correctly, John, they actually, the previous owners had put in, after a preliminary plat, they had put in some infrastructure, had they not?
Yep, a lot of the
Drainage, et cetera.
and road base, and you go out there and you see there's hydrants, and it's sort of classic. That, and for everybody's information who isn't familiar with this, it was originally proposed and went through the early parts of the process pre-2008, right before the session, and the timing was just awful for them. So
terrible.
Basically, it never happened after 2008 because of the quote unquote Great Recession. And then the previous owner and his partners sold it to the Dalwhinnie Group somewhere around 2016 or something. And they got a preliminary plat approval, a redone one because the other one had expired completely in 2018, right before the URA, the unincorporated river overlay zone, because they're up against the river and they wanted to kind of get in under the wire on that. But they've been doing a lot of work with the Army Corps on the floodplain associated with their property and all that. So Russ, am I right that we granted a 1-year extension, or did
I think we gave them a 2-year, which is what they initially asked for, but we told them that if they did come back, that we would not give them, that we would
this would be the last
look to implement UROD. They said it would be their last, but we said, if you do come back, we'll look to implement UROD, and that will change up their plans completely. So through that area.
Does that lot border on the lot that we did the preliminary approval for the sketch plan with the townhomes?
You mean the co-housing, quote unquote?
No, I guess I'm over on
The
Liddell.
one on Liddell.
Iron Rail.
Yeah, Iron Rail Townhomes.
Yeah,
It's not too far from there,
it's
Michelle.
not far from there, but I don't think it actually abuts it.
Okay.
But, and also, Michelle, how many lots were originally done? It's a sizable development, as I
think
recall.
it's 2018 or 20, and there's 4 deeds.
Yeah, stuck somewhere between 17 and 20 for me as well. It's been a while.
And that's within the incorporated town boundary? And where
Yes.
does the town end on 23 there?
Out where the speed limit sign is, where the little jog in the road is by the drainage. And they have one road, you'll see the road into their subdivision. One of the roads actually, it's sort of a loop, and it starts from out off the county side of 23 but all the lots are within the town and the town boundary. I think their southernmost boundary probably lines up with the southernmost boundary of Solar Ranch.
Mhm.
Pretty
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah, thanks, John. And it's not, I don't think it's necessary to have a super official, but it's really nice to have the communication and know what's going on. Really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have anything else? Go ahead.
Well, so I'm not sure if this has anything to do with the planning commission, based on some of the other comments around Lena Street and Amelia. But I did want to bring up something that I've seen as a user of the town here that I think probably needs some attention. And I don't know if that's just the town engineering department or if we need to get involved as the planning commission, but I'm sure you're probably aware that the street, which I don't recall the name right now, between Taco Del Nar and the liquor store.
That's Cora Street.
Cora Street, thank you.
North, South
right-
Cora.
Yeah, so South Cora, the first block there, we've got parking going every which way. So if you are heading south, a lot of the cars are turned in at a 45-degree angle to the right, and they park like that for a ways, and then halfway down the rest of the block, they park parallel, which is fine. What I see as being a problem is that they're also doing that on the east side of the road.
Yeah.
And so by the liquor store, so people are pulling in to the left over there and facing towards the oncoming traffic. And so if you imagine now, there's this whole issue of how these cars back in and out. And I think this is just one of these things, a growing pain that the engineers haven't really dealt with it or something, but I see this set up frequently. I've taken photographs of it and I just thought I'd bring it up. I don't know if that's our scope, but Preston, if you are hearing me, I think that's something that might be want to be looked at, because I think there's no real delineation of how to park properly there. And I think what's happening there doesn't look very safe and appropriate.
Yeah, it ends up looking like a fish trap, where
Yeah.
you can get in,
But
and
you
if
can't get
somebody
out.
happens to be pulling out while you're trying to go by, you could be quite cooked. From
To me, that's not even an engineering issue. It's an enforcement and signage issue. And I think it's probably something that council's been remiss in just asking staff to let people know that on the west side of the street there, the east side of the street, it should just be parallel parking. And I know that the issue is going to be that's going to create a reduction in the amount of spaces there between the highway and the next intersection at Hyde Street. But it's just a fact of the matter that it doesn't make sense to have diagonal on both sides, that first quarter block or half block.
Right.
Preston.
Okay, so without taking more of everyone else's time here on this issue, but I would like to pursue it more, John, who do you recommend I talk to then?
Thomas, that'd be me. And
okay.
that issue is certainly on our radar,
Okay.
and something that's on our list to try to get addressed. Yeah, John, you're right. Not an engineering issue, simply I shouldn't say simply. I think I overuse that word. It's an enforcement signage issue. That's something we can work with the marshal's office.
Okay, great. That's all I wanted to bring up. Thank you, Preston.
No, thank you, Thomas. That was great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Anyone else? Shall we adjourn?
Moved.
Don't even need a motion, but if you want,
All right. No.
the chair can just say we're adjourned.
We're adjourned.
All
Thanks, everyone.
right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Michelle. Yeah.
Bye. Thanks, Michelle.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Hope you feel better, John.
Yeah. Get better.
It's a slow process, but I'm better every day, I think.